Thank you. I'm Paula from Hong Kong U. I would like to ask a question to the panel. Given that a number of you are working in a central unit, which you provide support to academics, the question is it a better model, that is support from the central unit, or a distributed model, that is if supports are from faculty level? What it means is in faculties, they have their own sort of different disciplines and there are different needs. Very often they might have different expectations. So my question is it a better model to have a centralized sort of support or a distributed support? That's my question. Thank you. Particularly on the e-learning.
I'll have first go. The answer is both. A distributed network, if it doesn't have coordination, ends up back in these medieval fiefdoms and people working their own disciplines. I think the way we've tried to get that sort of distributed system going at Chinese U is through committees. A few people have mentioned senior management as being important, but I think it's not just the PVC or the vice president who's important. I think it's the committees that that person chairs. So at Chinese U there's two, the Senate Committee on Teaching and Learning and the Academic IT Steering Committee. And both those committees have senior people from each faculty. Now, and then as I said, we try and have this e-learning liaison person in each department. Now, it's all of that. So my own personal feeling is that unless you had a central unit, but I'm trying to keep my own job, of course, unless you had a central sort of service that helps to coordinate and facilitate that network, I don't think it would work. But you certainly have to see that as one of the key strategies for addressing differences and uniqueness across the institution.
And I guess my answer was it depends what you're aiming for. Within PolyU, we definitely have central support services. We also have one school that chose to use its own funding to have a member that was exclusively devoted to educational development. That model within that school worked very well with somebody in a professional model. What that brings us to, though, is how expensive is that when you multiply it by the number of departments or faculties, because they have to be near enough, they have to be on the corridor with their door open and be trustworthy so that somebody is willing to talk to them, ask a question, get immediate help, have an idea planted and come back 3 months later saying, well, maybe I will try that in my course next month. So it's expensive. Also, it's very hard if you do have that kind of a distributed model to have all the kinds of needs of that faculty or department or school. That's why when you have a central support team, you have people that can get very good at certain things, and that way they can share it throughout the university. With that, though, I think a third model that emerges from that are communities of practice or interest in the liaison people, and we also have that developing within PolyU. And that's usually academic staff member that we hope are getting some form of recognition and compensation if possible so that their contributions are both recognized for them personally and recognized in some way in the department. Not just another responsibility that gets forgotten and a couple meetings a year.
I think if you have a faculty-based model, I agree with Carmel, but there's a lot of fiefdoms out there. One of the things that a central unit does is it works across these fiefdoms, and therefore you get synergies and opportunities that would not normally exist. A good example is our recent implementation of Second Life. That's not being done for a particular department, it's being done for 3 departments. And therefore you get some potential synergies in terms of building resources, constructing, doing professional development, and also ways in which you gather evidence on the way students can interact in these environments. So I think you need your champions within the particular departments and the faculties, but you also need that centralising unit that can look across the institution and look at institutional needs from a very a broad focus rather than just simply a discipline focus. And we have the added advantage of Lingnan as being really small, so that helps as well.
I think we can also look at it from the angle of the students. I don't see any direct conflict actually of the so-called centralized model versus the decentralized model, because if we look at it from the student's entry point, I think it's necessary that the users have a common entry point. The arrangement can be a kind of, for the courses that students are registered, you need a kind of centralized system in order that you can integrate with the student information system. So after you enter into that, for example, individual course instructors or academics, they can anytime, anywhere, easily hyperlink. Let's say, imagine you are entering into a Blackboard or WebCity system, and individuals would like to set up their own Moodle or Sakai or whatever. It doesn't matter, because all we need is just a hyperlink. The problem then is you don't have the benefit of a single entry login, and that's it. You can consider that as a double door security entry. That gives the possible flexibility of a centralized support so that students are not given different domain names under different courses by different instructors, but you have a common entry point. I was talking to MC over tea time about that kind of possibility, and I don't see any conflict actually, because we need the exploratory, innovative approaches of individual academics and staffs of trying out different versions, different experiments with different kinds of stuff. But on the administrative side, for ease of usage for all parties concerned, and I'm not speaking from only the role of an administrator, because I only took up several months ago a pure administrative role. I have been a professor and teaching staff for decades, so I understand in a way both stories in some sense.
Maybe I'd like to add a point is, resources also is a consideration. Of course, it would be nice to have the support at the faculty or even at the department level, because within a faculty, there could be different demand from different departments. So eventually it will boil down to the resources and how to allocate it. Usually, or allocate to the central, actually doesn't mean it can support the whole university. Only support the, maybe what sometimes called the core function. That means I also always like to mention this bell curve. So the central part is only supporting those in the central part. That means about maybe 60%, or maybe even the good thing will be up to 90%. But then there will some other needs will be vary. In that case, the faculty or maybe or the department may like to explore further and may have to sometimes get the resources to do that. And I think in many universities have this teaching development grant from the university or from the TGC and so on. So that could be a source of resources.
I suppose I just make the final point that I don't think the two scenarios you mentioned are mutually exclusive. In fact, they work together very well. So you have a central unit, but for the departments that who can actually afford extra help, they will have extra help anyway. And for those that do not, then the central unit will be the lifeline.